Today I'm speaking with Sudeep Nagarkar, author of Happily Never After. This is his 14th book. He's a best selling author and writes about college life and modern generation love. I'm really excited because I really want to understand this modern generation love. His book, the first one, not I would say his first, but the one that made him super popular, it started with a friend request, was the most popular fiction book of 2013. I think that's how it starts these days for a lot of us. It's that friend request that comes on FB or Instagram. But after that, there was no stopping him. So, first of all, welcome, Sudeep. So excited to have you with us.
Same here, yeah. Thank you so much. And I really hope that will be a great session and we both enjoy.
I'm hoping for lots of love advice, but before we do that, we're going to get some quick fire from you. Let's understand you a little bit better. So,
Okay.
Twitter or Instagram, which one do you love?
I love Instagram more.
A book, a film, or a teleseries? Which one would you spend your Saturday night with?
A teleseries on the book can be a better option, I suppose. I
Now, love at first sight you believe in, or is it just infatuation?
That can be a personal choice, but then for me, it's infatuation. And I personally don't believe in love at first sight.
Enemies are lovers or friends to lovers? Which makes a better relationship?
If you ask a writer, then enemies to lover gives you a better scope to write more.
And your favorite romantic book?
Romantic word?
Book.
Uh, Apart from mine,
Of course, apart from yours,
then it
and a
has to be
classic.
The Fault in Our Stars.
All right, very nice. Thank you. So, first, let's dig right in because when I read the cover of your book, Happily Never After. So, the question is, do you not believe in happily ever afters, or are we tired of the cliche?
Oh, I mean, I, I personally, when I thought about it, so this is my 15th book. And then I realized that I have always talked about happily ever afters, but I've never really written about happily never after. And uh, then when I started researching a little more, I started observing things a little more from this perspective. I realized that these days we do say that one-sided love is unconditional. You don't need to rely on the other person and all sort of stuffs. I totally accept that fact. But what about the pain that inside you? And you cannot deny. Means obviously, when you love someone, you want that other person to respond. You want that other person to care about you. And when that doesn't happen, then somewhere inside you aren't happy. But then we don't talk about it. And if that is a situation, then how do you cope up with it? Because we do say to such people who are stuck in such a situation that you need to move on and you cannot force someone to love you. Obviously the person who is stuck in that situation also knows these facts, but वो हो नहीं पाता है. So how can you exactly just move on? Because I love that person and I want him to love back. And there comes a moment when this love turns into an obsession, and
Yes.
that's what the book talks about. The main protagonist of the book, Juhi, is in love with Abhay, and he is already committed to someone else. She tries each and everything to woo him, to catch his attention, but then nothing happens. They are not even friends for that matter. They just live in one personal space. They work together in an office space. So now, when she's stuck in the situation, what exactly happens to her life and how does she cope up with it is what the book talks about. And that's what that means when we came up to this title, I thought that there cannot be a better title for this book than this.
No, but it's good to see people writing about realism because we grew up with too many Hindi movies and happily ever afters, and that's really warped our idea of what a relationship is. But
Yeah,
you write a lot of romantic novels. So we want to understand what's romance for this millennial generation because a lot of us are very confused. And
yeah.
we feel they're also confused about the concept and the meaning of a relationship of marriage.
It's changing drastically. I still believe that the emotions of love are still the same, but the way you interact with each other, the way you share things with each other are changing drastically. Means like I still remember like it's been just 10 years that I'm out of college. But then nowadays I see the college going kids are, I feel like I'm out of space totally. And I don't know, I mean, like जब मैं college में था तब at least ये था, there was no social media at that time.
Yeah.
So we had to literally approach the girl and talk with her, or the boy whom you love, and you had to actually converse with them. But now it's just
Now you
about
send
one message.
emojis.
There are no goosebumps. Okay, I can understand कि still थोड़ी बहुत तो मतलब वो एक होता है मन में कि मैसेज डालूं या ना डालूं, but that's completely different than what you are actually when you are actually facing that person. That's totally different. And even if you are want to break up with that person, still you had to face that person those times. Now it's simply blocking on Facebook and Instagram and your work is done. So relationships are getting casual. But then I feel that's why I was just mentioning in the beginning that I personally don't believe love at first sight these days. And even when I was in my college days, because you need to have that trust in that person. You need to develop that bond first to actually say that you are in a committed relationship. It's a very heavy word and comes with a lot of commitment. And you need to know that person, you need to understand that person if you want to spend the entire life with them. But then if it's a casual relationship, then you don't need anything of the sort. Uh, that's what I feel like. The emotions of love are still the same. People are little open about their relationship these days, either boy or a girl. But then still, personally, I feel social media is a curse for those who are in a relationship, because nowadays it's about sharing password. Password nahi diya to uske upar breakups, and the problems of the millennials have got more are way complex than what we used to face when we were in that relationship.
So, how, because you write romantic novels, you write for this generation. So, how do you get into their mindset and what makes a good romantic novel and a good
Yeah.
story these days?
Obviously, we can research about it now that I'm into my early 30s. So that scares me, to be honest. But then we can research about how they talk. We can talk with them and understand. But then still, if you ask me to do the same things, I'll not be able to do that. If you ask me to use those Snapchat filters, if you ask me to use those Instagram filters, or probably just make a random reel, I have to think twice before making one reel, or probably more than 10 times. But then for these people, it's like a routine thing. So you see, you need to understand that nerve when you are writing about relationships of those people who are into their 20s or teenagers. You need to understand these things a little more. But like I said, the emotions are still the same. You can play with those emotions, but the way they are conversing with each other, like if I have to give you an example, my first book, Few Things Left Unsaid, had absolutely no mention of social media. They were talking with letters, they were exchanging text messages. But then now, if I'm not involving all those things, then I'm not doing that justice, and these kids will not be able to relate with it. No reader will be able to. Like I was discussing with someone like a couple of weeks back, after like 2 to 3 years, when we are writing about this 2018 2020 period, it is not going to be possible that we don't talk about this entire COVID phase. We have to talk about it through our books. We have to inculcate that what was the perception of the characters during that period, because that is something that you cannot avoid these days. So that's the only thing that I take care of.
Now, let's talk about, because we talk about a lot of things that are stereotypical, but even in your book, a lot of these stereotypical ideals come up. You
Yeah,
started with your prologue. It says if a guy declares his feelings, he is considered sweet and romantic.
right.
But she, may be considered chalu or some such thing. It's our
Yeah,
deepest mindset. We are waiting, and still, I think the millennial generation is still waiting for the guy to make the first move. And I'm sure they just have as much fear of getting rejected. But we're still stuck in that stereotypicality that the guy has to make the first move, or
yeah.
has that changed a lot?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough to get out of that mental block. It's tough because uh, we are feeded with these thoughts through movies or through books or even through our parents, like all the etiquettes, everything that revolves around being a gentleman, and the female then probably expecting the same thing. So that is how it is. And but then somewhere I felt that I need to break these stereotypes, and I've always tried to do that through my books. Be it making a female as a protagonist, even if it was about there was a book called Second Chance where I had made a female protagonist because that was necessary. And every time when I'm involving a particular character, be it a female character or male character, it has to have that substance. If there is no substance, then I will probably delete that character. But then through books, through movies, we have always been treated the same thing about the stereotype that the men should take the first move, and the girl probably keeps hoping about the same thing. Or if men doesn't have that courage, तो वो जो लव स्टोरी है वो वहीं खत्म हो जाती है, उसकी आगे कभी बढ़ती ही नहीं है. And then there is no point in regretting. I mean, there is absolutely no problem. You can accept female working in your workspace. You can accept them in as a in a position of a CEO, but then still you want a guy to make a first move. And even problem is, like I mentioned in the book also, like if guy gets rejected, it's pretty normal and is not a talking subject of the town. But then when a girl gets rejected, then there comes whole lot of humiliation around it. And I don't understand why. I still don't know, and I have no answer to your question that when this mental block will be like totally out of our system. But then still, I don't know. Looks like, but then होता है ऐसा ही होता हुआ आया है, and I strongly blame Bollywood for that.
I hope girls get more gutsy and are willing
Yeah,
to take charge, because this is one area that we also need to break the barrier. But
yeah,
another area is this generation gap, and this is what we talk about, making parents understand, and the parents still feel that it is their responsibility to settle down the child, to get them married, and marriage is the be all and end all. How
yeah,
do we make this generation gap where you're now dealing with two different sets, one which is firmly in the belief, now you're 25, blah blah blah, you need to get married, and even you see it in your book, you can't get divorced even if it's not working out,
yeah,
and usually it's always the fault of the guy.
yeah. I mean, probably our generation will be a lot more accepting than what the previous generation was. This is what I'm assuming. I don't know. When I'll be in the shoes of my parents, then probably I'll be able to answer this in a better way. But then, yeah, even I had to face it. When I was 22 and I had completed my engineering, I had completed my MBA, I was working in a corporate, I had a corporate job. And that's when I decided, after it started with a friend request, that I will take writing full time. And the first question of my parents was not that how are you going to do it, कैसे होगा ये सब, अब अचानक छोड़ रहे हो, नहीं. Their first question was कि 2-3 साल के बाद शादी होने वाली है, तो हम लड़की के घर
कौन
वालों को
शादी
क्या
करेगा?
बताएं, क्या वो लड़का कर क्या रहा है. So you see, the first question was this, and I was like, it's my life. I have to. I am the one who is going to decide. Just because of this one question, I cannot go away with the passion that I have. But then, yeah, somewhere I feel these days you are seeing it a lot. Like earlier, if you see, it was only about engineering or medical. These were the only two fields that were considered superior. Now is not the case. At least with the profession, we are very accepting. So with relationships and all these stereotypes, I hope that we get over all these things very.
One more stereotype, the one about this generation being more rational and really being able to accept women that earn more than them or are more successful. Is that really happening, or do women, and especially successful women, still feel they pay the price of success?
Oh yeah, we are pretending it a lot more. It's not at all happening, and we do pretend it a lot more. There can be exceptions. Uh, I have seen my friends, जिनकी शादी हुई है, their wives are earning more, and they're quite comfortable with that thing. But then we are not talking about just Mumbai, or we are not talking about just Delhi or Bangalore. We are talking about pan India. And if we are talking about pan India, we cannot neglect the tier 2, tier 3 cities where abhi bhi people are not comfortable, and they still think that the man should be the earning member of the family. And suddenly, if it switches, then there is a problem. But like I said, the metros are getting used to it, and as a writer, I also feel then responsible. Doesn't matter if it's just a love stories, even if these books, the love story books, are considered in trash fiction, all these things are still fine for me. But then I know that if there are more than a lakh people who are reading it, I have to be responsible enough, because for someone who is just,
It has an impact on us.
yeah, for someone who is just 17 or 18 who have started reading or started analyzing movies from the real life perspective, these are the thought provoking things that need to get injected into them, and वो thought process तभी जाके वैसे.
Now, the toughest part, realizing a toxic relationship and when to end it. Like we
Yeah.
talked about earlier, this is the toughest thing. When do you realize that you are actually in a spot that's so bad for yourself and also possibly for the other person?
It's very easy. It's us who make the relationships complicated. If you're not able to gel up, if you're not able to bond together, I think there is no point in taking that relationship ahead. There is no point in saying to yourself कि सब ठीक हो जाएगा.
But
नहीं
this
होने वाला वो.
question, even in your book, you feel you're so much in love that
Yeah,
it is okay, ho jayega theek,
yeah.
that
So
love
that's
can
what.
cure all.
Yeah, but then exactly, you see, there are these idioms, there are these books, movies, everything that your parents, your relatives, your friends, each and everyone will keep telling you, हो जाएगा, ठीक हो जाएगा, कुछ नहीं होता. लेकिन कैसे कुछ नहीं होता? It's obviously the more time you spend in that toxic relationship, your confidence, your morale is going down day by day, and then suddenly one fine day you will think that अब मुझे छोड़ना है. So it's going to be very, very difficult. It's always better, if you're not comfortable in a particular relationship, just end it. Doesn't matter what society thinks about it, doesn't matter how you are going to cope up with it ahead. But then I'm quite sure that it's always going to be better than being in a toxic relationship, for sure.
Now, especially for you, I mean, you're writing about, like I said, so many emotions. What is the toughest part for you for being a writer, and that too a romantic, or I would say, in
Yeah.
that genre of writing?
So it's for me these days. It's about what else are you going to show? Because like after writing 14, 15 love stories to me, if you ask me, uh, whether you will read a love story or whether you will watch a romance movie, I am a total no to it. I don't like watching romantic movies. I don't like reading romance books. The only thing is because it's मेरे साथ ऐसा होता है, because I am a writer. I start thinking from that particular angle कि
Yeah.
ऐसा होना चाहिए था. Wow, I should have
So
included all
you're like
these
a
things.
cook who doesn't like to eat his own food.
Yeah, so kind of that sort. But then if you really see the template of love stories, then it's almost pretty same. That yeah, boy and girl are going to meet in the mid of the book. Probably they'll have a breakup or some kind of complex situation that they are going to face, and towards the end, either it is happily ever after or happily never after. The entire story is being cooked in all three in these three things. But then you need to understand what emotions you are showing, how you are sketching your characters, how you are building up the entire character graph. That makes you different as a romance writer. So that's the challenging part for me. Though I am writing love story, whenever I'm quite sure that even if my reader is picking up a love story, he can go straight forward to the last 4 pages of the book and understand if it's a happily ever after or happily never after. फिर उसके बाद वो पढ़े तो उसमें क्या अलग है जो मैं दे सकता हूँ. That is something that I keep in mind, that how the character development will happen, how the story will evolve, and what will keep them hooked. What are the different cliffhangers that I can add towards the end of each chapter? So you see, all these things makes into one good book.
Now, a lot of concern that is this next generation really reading, or are they just Netflixing? What's going on? Or are they doing a bit of both?
The attention time is decreasing. That's something that is concerning, because reading books needs a lot of patience. But then, if you're watching a movie or a web series, the visual world obviously cannot compete with the text world, right? Because that's the entire experience that you get. And when it comes down to books, you have to imagine the world yourself. Over there, when it comes down to the visual world, the director is obviously making you
Imagining for
imagine,
you.
and you just need to sit and relax, eat a popcorn, and do nothing else. But then that's the scarier part. If you are getting used to this a lot more, then your imaginative skills, the way you want to think about a particular situation, that's not going to happen with these the young kids. And that is why reading is more important. Doesn't matter. You can still watch web series. You can still watch a movie. You can decide how much time you're going to spend with that, how much time you're going to spend with reading the books. Both are equally important. Like, if I have to, I'm quite sure even if you will relate with it. When I was in my school days, I had to literally fight with my parents कि कब वो vacation आएंगे और मुझे library join करने मिलेगी और मैं अलग अलग books पढूंगा. So you see, that was the craving for it. I had to wait for it. Now it's not the case. The books are easily available on Amazon. You can order it. So you see, that craving is gone. Now it's only about reading. अब अगर वो भी खत्म हो जाएगी तो it will be very difficult, because everything that you want is on just one click. So that's the scarier part, that the attention time is decreasing. Comes back to the same first question of yours, how relationships are different these days. Because the overall attention time is decreasing, your relationships are getting complex these.
Now, let's talk about your love story. Did that change your writing in any way? Because you wrote as a bachelor and then you wrote after you got
Yeah,
married.
it did. And the way I think about relationships, obviously, when I was a teenager, I was very reckless. So you can see that recklessness in my first two, three books. But then later on, when I understood what responsibility is, what love is, and how important it is to have that partner who understands you well. So when I got Jasmine, and when I met Jasmine, when we got married, I felt a lot more happier. I was in that happy space whenever I was writing, because obviously this is concerning when you get married. The thing is, if you don't have your own space, especially when you are into some creative field, if you don't have your own space, then you are gone. You will not have that peace to just write, to think about different topics and all those things. But the way she has given me that space, that freedom to think, do whatever I want, is something that I always needed. And that was something that I even analyzed when we were in that long distance relation. It was not only about just love and love. I'm quite sure even she, from her
That's
side,
really, really good
was
advice.
analyzing that whether I am compatible enough for her, and usko change hone ki zarurat nahi padegi. Even I was analyzing from this point of view. And then when we finally got married, I told her that yeah, I was thinking from all the different perspectives. Because I'm a writer, I was creating the situations on purpose to see how you will react to it and all those things. But then later on, मुझे पता लगा कि ये मेरी भी माँ है इस मामले में. She also did the same thing, and I never knew that I was actually brought to this situation, and it didn't happen naturally. So you see, sometimes these things, because you have time before marriage, you are in a relationship, and after 1 year of relationship, it cannot just chalo movie chalte hai, chalo idhar chalte. Yeah, somewhere it gets boring. So when it gets boring, to add such little adventures works a lot on.
Let's talk about your desire to actually quit your management job and follow your dream. Because, like you said, your parents were very worried. There are a lot of people that dream and have this thing that they want to become a writer, they want to become an author.
Yeah.
So, what do you think it takes to become a successful writer?
For those who really want to become a writer, for them, I'll say that first, write a good story. Don't just think about taking it as a full-time career. It's not easy. I'll be very honest that in India, to get a good publisher and to reach out to the people is not easy. But if it happens, and then you feel that yeah, your life is secured financially, then you can take that decision. But then initially, it's very important to concentrate on your craft, on your storytelling skills. And if you really want to be successful, you need to have that patience in you. And don't just judge yourself from all the social media comments that you are getting. Because I believe that for every writer, for every story, there is an audience out there. And you can see it from Bollywood, where Rajkumar Rao movies also works and Salman Khan movies also work. So you see, there is an audience for each and everything. All you need to do is don't shy off from whatever you are. If I'm writing a love story, if I'm writing a popular fiction novel, then okay, I am writing it. I don't want to add those literary words in it. I do it on purpose, because if I'm trying to convince myself that I am into a literature world, and that is why I should purposely add those kind of words where people need to use dictionary, तभी जाके मुझे वो respect मिलेगी. Nothing of that sort. Keep it very simple. Just accept that people are going to read your books probably 5 times, 10 times. It's going to be in their bookshelf for 5 years, 10 years. It's not going to be like cherished for like 100 years. You're not William Shakespeare. You're not someone of that sort. You are just someone who want to entertain, and that's completely fine. There is absolutely no shame in it. That acceptance initially is something that the new writers need to bring in to be successful and to promote their work. Because I've seen people लिख देते हैं and then they are very shy to talk about their own work
Yes.
on social media also, or even if they want to talk somewhere else. But then that's what happens. If it's your work, if you don't talk about it, then who else will talk about it? You will. People will think that he himself is not confident about his own book. Then why should we talk about it? You should talk about it whenever you get a chance. You should talk about it.
Now, I know this question might probably irk you, but you're often compared to Chetan Bhagat. Both of you write in this college, filmy drama,
Yeah.
romantic kind of realm. What are your thoughts on that?
Like I was just mentioning, I cannot shy away from it, right? He had the same background, engineering, then the management, and then the writer. So obviously there will be comparisons. But then I still believe that his writing is very different and my writing is very different. I concentrate more on bonding in relationships. He has that dark humor in his writing and the way he sees the society. And obviously, there is no hiding that he was the first one who brought this entire revolution. He made India read. I'm quite sure for those who are watching this channel also, there will be criticism on him. For those, there will be critics. There will be people who will say that he doesn't write good. There will be people that he writes good. Doesn't matter, as long as we are still talking about him. That's what matters, and we will keep talking about him. The reason is because he was the first one to bring this revolution. He made India read. Nobody, even the publication houses, never ever thought that the small town India will also read English books. But then that was only possible because he entered it, brought that entire revolution. You have to accept it. And all this new generation of writers who are still thinking to take writing full time is only because of that one single man.
So, who are your role models? I mean, we've talked about Chetan Bhagat, but other ones that we can look up to and say, okay, here are some people that you say, yes, I was inspired by them.
Yeah. So there are many. It's like I have seen writers who come up to me and say that आपका पहला book था जो पढ़ा था, and they got inspired by me. The only thing that really matters over here is it's not Bollywood, where if your movie is releasing on the same day, there is going to be competition. That's not going to be the case. Reading is something, books are something where people will finish one book in one day. And for those who are hardcore readers, they'll want something else the next day. So people will read the. So for me, if it comes down, I always say, don't just read my books. Read whatever comes your way. Be it me, be it Chetan Bhagat, be it Amish, be it Durjoy, be it Ravinder Singh, anything that comes your way. But just keep reading. Be as as an audience, as a writer, as publication houses, we want people to read. And these days, I even keep talking, though I do say that yes, they can buy my signed copies on Amazon. And for those who prefer online buying, can buy it on Amazon, Flipkart. But then, if you are someone who loves reading, go to the bookstore and then buy a book. There's no feeling that can be compared to going to the bookstore and then buying it. So yeah, the different inspirations that comes up.
Now, my last question for you is, what do you want us to know about Happily Never After?
So yeah, this is the book Happily Never After. It's already in your backdrop also. Yeah. So like I was talking about that, it talks about one-sided love affair, which is pretty evident from the title itself. But it isn't something which will make you sad. It will give you that hope to live. And how, if you are someone who is stuck in the particular situation like this, then you should read this book. And though I am not giving any relationship advice in it, but then still with the story of the protagonist Julie, how she handles the situation, and where to draw the thin line between just
Question.
letting go that relationship, is what the book talks about. And I really, really hope that people love it. I personally enjoyed writing it, because like if I have to write a love story, it's very easy for me these days. I can just go on writing incidents after incidents about relationship of the protagonists. But then over here, despite being a love story, there isn't a love story in it. It's just a one-sided affair. And what happens, how their life changes after getting into that particular situation, is what the book talks about. So I'm quite sure that readers will enjoy reading.
And I think a lot of people will relate to Julie
Yeah.
and Abhay. So I think with that, thank you, Sudeep. It was great to have you with us.
Same here. Yeah. Thank you so much.